Greetings, hi, hello, welcome to and/or welcome back to my YouTube page. Hi, I'm Fire Lotus the Witch. Before anybody asks, I burnt my pinky last night, so that's why it's bandaged up. I'm okay though, and as you can tell, I'm not at the office. I am at this amazing property, and I had some time to shoot a video. So, for one, here are some tips on how to connect to nature and to start building that familiarity and that relationships with your land spirits. Every place has land spirits, okay? I don't care if you live in the middle of Manhattan. I don't care if you live in California, in Canada, in Ireland. Every place has land spirits. Well, Lotus, what happens if I live in an apartment complex? For one, some people are led to believe, I'm one of them, that every home becomes it basically over time a spirit is created. Now let me know if you want a video on specifically that topic in the comments, because I would love to do one. I haven't done one on that yet. But every place has different types of spirits. Now, obviously, the land has spirits too. But here are some things before I go off into the exercises, what you can do. Here are some cautionary tales, if you will. For one, and just important information to know. For one, not all land spirits will want anything to do with you, okay? And do not take offense to that, all right? They're their own thing, okay? They have their own energy, they have their own consciousness, and if they want to work with you, they can. If they don't, then I've lived in places where they wanted nothing to do with me, and I actually came to an agreement where I had a specific location where I could openly practice outside. Now, leaving offerings and things like that, perfectly fine. Doing small little candles, like spells, perfectly fine. But anything that would majorly draw things in, I had one place only. There was another place where I lived. It wasn't my fault, but we moved in the room where this piece of wood was to a stump where a gnome lived. And things portrayed, and I got to the point where I made a deal with him, and I was like, hey, I'm just going to give you beer, a fresh beer every full moon, and I would pour it on the piece of wood. Let's just say I forgot a couple of times because life got crazy, which is going to lead into the next section in a minute. But yeah, I forgot and things got a little chaotic. I had to make up with extra offerings. There are some land spirits where they can be very stern, if you will, to where they may intimidate you. I've never really came across anybody who's been actually harmed by one, unless they, like, will say majorly stepped over some boundaries, all right? Land spirits can also be a mixture of, like, land spirits, just like a spirit of the land, and then also if anybody has passed away there. And also, I know this may be a hot topic for some people, just acknowledge, if you live here in the continental United States of America, and in most other places, there are going to be native spirits. So there's going to be a presence there, whether you know that, whether you ever interact with them or not. Because a lot of the times, I can sense their presence on some places, but it's like they don't want to be seen, messed with, or anything like that, right? And I believe that's just because they're kind of still living, just on a different frequency, okay? But anyways, so do some research. For example, dragon's blood. I was told this, and it makes sense in some ways, and apparently there are some historical aspects to it, but burning dragon's blood, it's very harsh to native spirits and potentially to the spirit world. So if you do have to burn some, or if you just burn the incense or the actual resin, make sure you burn something else, especially if you're doing it outside. Of something sweet like tobacco or sweetgrass, and I know that in itself is a hot topic too. That's not what we're here to discuss about. But yeah, so think about that, okay? There are a lot of herbs that you can use that will help strengthen that connection to spirits and ancestors, and just in general land spirits as well. Another thing, try, because you're probably going to be like, well, Lotus, how do I go about this? There's not really any research you could do unless you just did. Now, an interesting fact, if you can, like if you have the necessities like the library and things like that, you could potentially try to research the actual history of the land itself. You may discover a lot of things there. I've done that once or twice and found out that there were a few people that did pass away there. I've even lived on a few properties where there were actual graves in the backyard or the side yard or the front yard. And any place that I learned like that, I would leave flowers, and that's just a way of remembering them. Whether I know them or not, it's respect. But trying not to get too sidetracked. Research, if you can't research, do it intuitively. And now at this point, this is technically, it's beginner friendly, but at the same time, it's advanced because you need to know defense. You need to make sure that you have protection, not only like your wards and things like that, because again, those wards are going to be on this property, but you need psychic protection. You need to make sure you've got like not just necklaces and charms and things like that, or crossroads or iron or anything like that, but you also need to have like mental blocks, mental shields, and layers of them. I prefer layers. I have all different types of techniques that I use. Now, true enough, you're going to have to ease yourself into that because some of them, depending on how they're worked, it will actually have an effect on you. Primarily, you'll get like mentally tired sometimes. So take into effect of that. Again, when you were manipulating energy, which is what I believe magic or witchcraft is, it will take a toll on the body. So whatever that is to you, make sure you have a routine. You are going to know more than I will, and you're going to be more in tune with your own body than I am. So just remember that grounding and centering, getting rid of some of that excess energy, depending on how much you raise and depending on what you're doing, is extremely important. And that can also play into, like, if you're sick, I would not go out and try to do a working at the crossroads because you need a lot of protection for that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not fully up to par energetically, like if you have the flu for like 2 weeks and you're still in recovery, I wouldn't do any major spells, depending on how you do your spell work, because there are some spells where I don't necessarily manipulate energy, but a lot of the times I will. There's a bit of alchemy in there too, because not only are you manipulating the atoms and ions and stuff, but you're taking multiple ingredients and putting them together and transforming them into something entirely new. I got sidetracked. I'm sorry about that. If you're new here, please get used to that. I'm sorry. That's just how I roll, and I don't mask my ADHD or neurospiciness, all right? It's a huge part of me, and sometimes I hate it, but it's part of me. It helps out even magically. But anyways, land spirits, if you don't know, or if you're not to that part where you have your shields up, and or to where you can find some way to communicate with spirits, whether that is intuitively, I have claircognizance, and that's clear knowing. And then I'm a medium, so I have my own ways of kind of picking up on spirits. Let me know if you want me to do a video on that, of like how I experience them, and or like working with deities, how I know if a deity is trying to communicate with me or wants a specific offering. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to do a video on that, because I totally will. Also, I'm sorry for the shaking. I have anxiety, so I shake sometimes. And if I put you down here, that's just going to be awkward. So there we go. We'll compromise. How about that? But give an offering. Typically, depending on where you're at, there are multiple ways that you can do this. Now, when you're giving an offering, try not to do anything that can harm the environment, or most importantly, harm the animals around it, or even attract wild animals. Because imagine if you laid out an offering and it attracted a bear, and then a situation unfolded where they, had to euthanize it or something like that. So be very cautious of your surroundings, all right? Not to mention, like, you'll see online, building relationships with crows. Take this with all seriousness, please. I did that at my house. They will show up every 3 days. I did that at another location where me and my partner are at a lot. And I did it one time. I just threw out some extra chips that I had. They bully this person. They'll actually dig inside their trash can, and if they can't really find any food, they'll strung trash all over their place. So be cautious with building relationships with crows. Anyways, you're going to give an offering. This could be like bird seeds. Now, when I personally say working with the land or working with the land spirit, I believe that spirits of all different types, gods and goddesses, and just spirits, and every subsection of that sentence, I believe that they can also use the animals around them to communicate with us, just like ancestors can. So literally going out, researching the food, because if you did not know this, depending on what type of bird feed you get, if it's not eaten, it can actually sprout whatever the fuck is growing. I've seen it in multiple different types of situations and yards, so be cautious of that. But yeah, things like that. You could literally go out, research, because you do not want to introduce any type of species of tree or, greenery or anything like that. That is not part of that environment, which is where bioregionalism comes in at. I've said this before, time and time again. That is extremely important, okay? But that will go into making sure you don't need an invasive species. You know what I mean? But other things like that could be honey and milk, which some people will state that would be towards the fae, and there are some people, this will lead into a whole different argument or a different conversation, but some people will in fact use, or they believe their land spirits or land spirits in general are a like subsection of fae, or a subgenre of fae, if you will. It depends on what you believe, okay? The spirit world is complex, and the crazy thing is it's kind of like that saying where Christians pray about it, Catholics light a candle, this person does this, this, and this. Scientists say this, atheists say this, but at the end of the day, nobody's questioning it. That's the same state as spirits. So they may be described or have different names, depending on where you're at, like state-wise, continent, everything like that, culture-wise. They're all the same thing. You know what I mean? So be cautious of that. But milk, honey, bread, fruit, vegetables. Again, though, just make sure they're not going to necessarily take over your yard, because there are some things you can accidentally plant that will literally take over your yard. You could do liquor, whiskey, coffee, tobacco, and as you're slowly communicating with them and learning a way to communicate with one another, eventually over time they'll kind of give you the sense of what they want specifically. There's a lot that your land spirits can do to you. If you're a homesteader, if you're a gardener, oh my god, can they help you grow your stuff. And speaking on fae, just research fae, but I just know that I'm a practitioner that has worked with the fae and it went okay. They can be mischief, if you piss them off, things like that. But just research them instead of just hearing a few videos. Oh my god, it's the fae, they're coming after me. Please do your research. There's a lot of fear-mongering in the spiritual world. I'm sorry, I had to say it. The witchy world, just like there is a modern day. It's annoying, but and that's a part of the spiritual journey. You're gonna have to decipher through a lot of fear-mongering and bullshit. But anyways, now another thing like this, if you have a specific tree, I'm going to try to flip this around, see if you can see. Yeah, see that tree right there? That one? Yeah, if I lived here, I would be using that tree as a center point, as an altar, if you will, to them, to the land spirits. I have one that I use for the land spirits and the ancestors, but that's also just because a family tree. I pick a tree, they're ancient, they literally symbolize families throughout the ages, so forth and so on. There's a lot more to connect ancestry and trees together, so there's you another rabbit hole to fall down. Are you taking notes? You should be taking notes. I'm sorry, this is how I learn, so I'm hoping that, I can meet people halfway so they can learn too. But anyways, so you're going to give an offering. They can reveal secrets to you when communicating with your house spirit. And again, with the house spirit, sense what it is, okay? It could just be they want the window open, or they want a specific plant, or, things like that. If you live in an older house, you're definitely going to have a house spirit of some sort. And if you want to picture a house spirit, picture them like a brownie, or the little puff balls in Spirited Away. I think it's Spirited Away. Is it Spirited Away? I love those animes, and I cannot for the life of me think of that. I think it's Spirited Away. But the little fuzzballs, think of it like that. Um, and again, depending on where you're at, you're gonna have different things. But regularly give them altars. Now, I mean, offerings, and kind of talk to them. The more you interact with them, the more you build that. Now, here's the warning part, the cautionary part. You will and you may come across a trickster. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna venerate them. Lotus, what the fuck is venerating? I'm glad you asked. It's basically asking dumb questions to actually check to make sure they are who they say they are. And again, some land spirits, because they can be extremely old, they may come off as extremely intimidating. So it may give you anxiety or this weird feeling. That doesn't necessarily mean you're in danger, okay? And again, if you're literally just starting out with this, tiptoe through this. Do not rush through this, okay? You're going to hear that time and time again. Do your research. Do not rush through shit, and do the footwork and legwork, okay? That's just a must with this, all right? Anyways, also set boundaries with them, okay? Just like you need to set boundaries with your deities, your ancestors. But anyways, you're going to ask them questions. It's just like a pendulum. You have to program the pendulum in a way, and I was taught that you're supposed to ask it like a very obvious question, like, is it raining outside, even though you're standing outside and it's sunny as fuck? Although some of them can be tricksters, and you worded it. Another lesson, watch how you word things. You're asking the pendulum, hey, is it raining outside? Well, no, it's not raining in your exact location, but it could be raining a mile down the road. Ah, yes. Anyways, land spirits. But yeah, slowly build over that, and they can teach you things. They can show you things, like if you have running water or a specific plant you may be looking for that you don't see. There's a lot that can benefit from building these relationships, okay? Not to mention, it's just kind of respectful to like introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm a practitioner, so forth and so on. But be careful. Here's the cautionary. They're not going to want your blood, okay? They're not going to want your DNA, okay? Do not bind yourself to them, okay? They are not your little henchman that you can just send forth to do your bidding. Again, you will come across tricksters. Those tricksters, depending on what type they are, there's a lot that they can do. You also may come across parasites. Primarily more astral or energetic parasites, but there are different types of parasites. These are like kind of leftover energy, echoes of energy, if you will, and they're like parasites. They're like a leech. They'll latch on and just kind of. You're gonna find those more at possibly graveyards, cemeteries, and like actual haunted locations. They're kind of like gnats. They're drawn to other things. And the haunted thing, I have theories about it where you'll have this normal haunting where it's like a non-residual or a residual. In other words, it's friendly spirits that's just, they don't mind you being there, or they don't even realize you're there. And then over a few years, somehow that gets twisted and a darker presence shows up. And then that can build. It's very interesting. But anyways, so yeah, do that with your land spirits. There's a lot that they can do. Now, some people will state, just like if you're working with, say, Gaia, and all of a sudden you wake up and you see a wild rose blooming in your yard, or a pecan tree producing pecans, and they've never done it since you've lived on that property. A fruit tree doing the same thing. Those can be signs that, things are going good, okay? Now, depending on the relationship you build with this spirit, you can use it as a protector in a way, because if it forms a relationship with you, it's not going to want something coming on there threatening you or threatening that property, you know what I mean? But they're not your little henchmen, all right? Now, you could work on... I'm still 50-50 with how this works, but a familiar spirit. Now, when I say that, a lot of people automatically go to a pet familiar. I believe you can have different familiars. Traditionally, depending on what part of history you're in, some people believed, and depending on what region or continent you're on, some people believed that familiars or fetches were actual, like, they use the term demon. I don't like that term. Don't get me started on that. But they believe that they're like little spirits that would do the witch's bidding for them. But yeah, I think I went over everything. They're not going to want your blood, DNA, shit like that. If you agree to do a specific thing, to do like a rite, for the people that don't know what that is, it's very similar to a ritual. but it's just doing something repetitively, like on a specific day or specific day and time. I think I got that right. But anyways, don't like tell them, hey, every full moon or every first Friday of the month or every Friday of the month, I'm going to do this for you, whether that's lighting a candle and an offering, because even with deity work, you can have consequences or repercussions from not fulfilling it. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to keep it real. You can be, there can be consequences with not fulfilling something. We're gonna say a contract in a way. No, that's very bad. Not a contract, but a deal, if you will. Um, if you do not fulfill that, say like multiple times, yeah. Now some spirits and deities will understand to a degree, but if you make it a habit, eh. Um, don't get in the habit of asking for too many things. What I mean by that is, if you're saying like, God, please, help the goddesses or spirits, please help me get out of this situation, or please stop this. I hate saying that, but what I mean by that is, don't constantly ask for money. That's the perfect example. Instead of asking for money, ask for what you're needing. Now, obviously, if that's to pay a bill, obviously, yeah, ask for money, but at the same time, word it as in you may get a donation, or spontaneous help may show up, an unexpected bill, things like that. Don't just keep asking and asking and asking and not doing anything in return. That's gonna fuck you up big time. Okay. Now with spell work, that gets complex, because like when there are certain deities that I work with, but I don't worship or work for. You know what I mean? In other words, if I'm doing a specific love working, I may call upon Aphrodite to come, and normally if I do that, whether they show up or not, I will leave an offering. Um, but I don't necessarily have an altar set up for Aphrodite or for this. You know what I mean. That's going to be something that you can do, but you don't necessarily have to do. But you will eventually hear it in a book like that. But I also do conjure work, so I work with a lot of spirits, and I'm also a death witch. So, but anyways, if you made it to the end of this comment, what is your favorite type of tree? There we go. What is your favorite type of tree? Let me know in the comments. If you learned something from this, share it to a group, share it to a Discord. Maybe other people can learn from it too. You never know. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. And don't forget to like, share, hit that subscribe button, But yeah, I'll let you go.